a warm welcome to all of you. Very happy you join. Warm welcome and happy you have this interest. So it's an interest in a committee that really we four have been working on and are trying to shape. So Helmut is also co-chairing, and then we are now joined by, now in comparison to the study group, I'll talk a bit more about that, by Anel from Stellenbosch and Mirko from Rome. And so we'll all talk a little bit to what we hope to do, to the problematique, to the mandate, to the plans we have, and I have the honor of kicking off. So again, a warm welcome, and we're thrilled to have reached this stage of establishing a committee. So as some of you know, because I see familiar faces and names, we come from a period of study group at the ILA. And hello, we see someone coming in. Great, welcome. We just started. So we had a study group around the theme of the role of cities in international law. And initially we had also the ambition to look into possible guidelines, but that's not what we did ultimately. The study group was really around this topic of the role of cities as actors, as new actors, more than anything else. And it prepared and tried to support the making of a little subfield in international law, in global governance and local governance and urban studies, because that's important to mention that throughout that process, different disciplines and we all have slightly different backgrounds came together. So the study group was really the beginning of explorations of the theme and more oriented towards cities as actors. And so deliberately, we have chosen a different uh, uh, um, title for this committee with urbanization and international law. And I won't talk too much about that because that will also be addressed by Helmut, talking about the problematique. But it's important to emphasize, some of you had questions about it. I heard it also beyond the people now joining. So the idea is to move a bit away from the role of cities as actors, but include different perspectives around the urban. So if you have seen the mandate, it's really also very much about how international law, global governance policies are developing in the urban context. So the urban is pushed a bit more to the forefront. So we have phrased a couple of different, broader, I should say, research questions. So we hope to benefit from the work we've done as a study group. A lot was done with the first research handbook, with deliberations, how to be a useful partner in this ILA context. And yeah, we're now very, very excited to build on that. Maybe one point on why we have deliberately chosen for this exercise to be based at the ILA, because we talked about it a lot, because the ILA is a global organization. So we really hope to benefit from that and to really see members of the ILA join from all corners of the world, because we think that urbanization and international law is really a topic that is global, but it's also so local in its globalness, or the other way around. I mean, it plays out differently at different places, and that's what has to inform all of our discussions. And so that's why we didn't go, for example, to a regional society of international law. So we really hope to benefit from the ILA as a global organization, and see a good diversity in the committee. Now, maybe that's because I'm eager to talk more about urbanization and international law and the discussions we had more substantively, but obviously it's important to leave that also to next speakers. And Helmut will talk a little bit more about that, our discussions there, and then Mirko more about the mandate, and Anel more about all the ambitions we have formulated. And reading them again, I thought, okay, we need to get to work. So we'll start formally in Athens with the launch, and well, Anel will talk more about the plans. So over to you, I think, for now, Helmut. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much, Jana. And I would not have minded if you had just continued to talk about urbanization and international law, the substance. But of course, we follow our plan here now, and I can come in here. So um, the substantive motivation behind the move towards the committee is really what Jana already said, that the planet on which we're living continues to urbanize. This is something which is not challenged as such, that this development is taking place. There are many different views on what urbanization means, whether it's a good thing or not a good thing, whether it's primarily a promise or a peril, what cities can do to address the world's most pressing problems, but how again also the world's most pressing problems play out in urban contexts. And the range of issues and challenges is really quite daunting. They range from questions of adequate housing over urban poverty, digital structures, security issues, protection of human rights and the protection of rights of vulnerable groups in general. So basically all current societal issues also play out in urban contexts. And at the same time, we have the feeling that international law, its norms, institutions, processes, and practices is still quite state-centric. It has been state-centric for ages, for centuries, also when it comes to non-state actors which have materialized. Many of them are still shaped to a large degree by states, and so this state-centric bias of the international system is really still there. Cities traditionally were very much irrelevant to international law. They were invisible to a certain extent, to pick up a formulation of an article by Milko. But despite their importance in real life questions, they had very little role to play in international law. And if we take this diagnosis of the ongoing urbanization of the world at face value, to us it is really a crucial question how international law responds to this development. So is urbanization changing international law, and how so, and how can international law process these changes? In the committee, we would like to build on the work of the study group. Jana has also already mentioned that the study group had a more narrow focus. It focused more on the role of cities as actors, so cities joining climate change networks, for instance, and forming alliances on the international level with a view to contributing to global climate change governance or related developments in the field of human rights and migration. So it was very much this perspective of the subnational level leaving the shell of the national political unit and developing a political and legal identity of its own. And we think that this is still a very relevant focus also for the work of the committee. But we had the sense that in a way this focus also limited the number of questions that that need to be addressed when we talk about urbanization, because international law plays out in many different contexts of urban spaces. For instance, urban space is structured by law, also by national law, but also by international law. Many international legal issues take on a very acute meaning in urban contexts, and I think we only need to look at the current form of urban warfare in Gaza to see how established rules of international humanitarian law are severely challenged in this urban type of conflict. Sustainable development plays out to a large extent in urban contexts, and we therefore think that this broader focus on urbanization and international law allows us to retain and keep this interest on cities also moving to the international level, doing important things in networks, cooperating with international organizations, localizing international norms, but that this focus on urbanization also allows us to keep in perspective the other relevant actors and the more structural effects that urbanization might have on international law. This is, we would say, very much an open question. Maybe we will come to the conclusion that urbanization leaves international law entirely unaffected. I think this is not our working hypothesis for now, but we need to be open with respect to the findings that we will have. In any case, we are confident that there is enough material, that there are enough developments on which to build for the work of the committee, which thereby also allows us maybe to turn to cross linkages between different debates on the urban and international law. And now I will make a similar move as Janne, because I think there's a danger that I might cross over into territory that already concerns the mandate, and hence I will hand over to Mirko, who will continue to speak about the mandate of the committee.
Thank you very much. Good morning, or better, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today. Indeed, the very title of this new established committee, Urbanization and International Law, tells already a little bit about the broader scope of the mandate in comparison with the previous study group, as already mentioned by Janne. In the first place, I would say that while for the study group, the key issue was somehow the turn to the city in international law, I have the very mandate starts also from the premise that there is also turn to international institutions and law by the city. And in this way, the very first point of our mandate is still to study the normative processes in which cities and other urban actors engage in and with international law. But the focus, I would say, is much more with respect to how the involvement of cities in international practice has started to shape somehow the law policy and the implementation. In this respect, there is a second part of the title of this committee that tells us a little bit with respect to the scope of the activities, potential scope of the activities of the committee, because it's not simply urbanization and international law, but also potential and pitfalls. The idea is to look at how and whether first and how the questions of urban governance are addressed through the means of international law, and if there is any potentiality in international law in addressing these key issues that already Helmut has remembered, from human rights to refugee protection to sustainable developments to the question posed by the continuing relevance of urban warfare in the current scenario, for example, as for humanitarian assistance or the issue of evacuation. But at the same time, there is also an emphasis on potential, not only on potentials, but also on pitfalls. So the turn to seat in international law and the turn to seat in international organization has somehow created a new type of contacts between the global and the local. And this new power dynamics might have negative effects as for the exigencies and the goals of local governance and local governments. So it is in this double focus, let's say, on potentials and pitfalls that we look at the phenomenon of urbanization and international law. That allows us to open up also the perspective with respect to, for example, the relationship between urban areas and urban areas and rural areas. This is something that it was somehow marginal in the previous, our previous activities in the context of the study groups. and at the same time to assess to what extent international law has offered a sort of framework that gives an understanding of the dynamics between center and the peripheries. In this regard, I think that one of somehow the challenges that we had in the study group was indeed the involvement of branches coming from what is called the Global South. So we expect that the new members come from the different areas and different parts of the continents, because we feel that a key issue remains that of the relationship between the understanding of the urban between global north and global south. So in that regard, I think it is already a welcome. It's very welcome the presence of members from, for example, the Nigerian and branch, and Africa is definitely an area of much interest for all of us. And Anel, in this regard, I think that your presence is really key for our committee, and I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Mirko, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to see you and to learn that we've got some interest in this committee, because we've got work to do. And I'm going to try and share my screen, and let's see how it works, because when we talk about outputs and dates, I believe it is somewhat easier to see it in writing. So let's see whether this works, as I'm not that familiar with WebEx.
I can also share if you like.
Perhaps, Helmut, it might save us some time that's needed for discussion afterwards.
Can you see it?
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much. So there you see the name of our committee on the screen, but it's also been introduced by Janne. And on the next slide, you will see that the committee is expected to live, if we can call it that, for at least 4 years. So we've got a 4-year mandate. I think not totally excluding the possibility of perhaps an extension of a year or 2, but let's not preempt that. And our planning is for the 4 years ahead. So for the immediate, we need to market and recruit this committee, and therefore we are so happy to have you, and we hope that there will be more members, possible members showing interest in the months to come. And as Helmut alluded to, as well as Mirko, representation geographically speaking, but also in terms of areas of expertise is quite important for the work we envisage to do. And so when we market this committee's work, I think that should also be one of the aims, to ensure representativity. So our envisaged future outputs, there are 4 very specific things we would like to produce, but again, not at the exclusion of possible other activities or collaborations resulting in other outputs. But there would be an interim report, a final report, a set of city reports. That is an initiative that was already started in the context of the work of the initial study group. And then a special edition, or special issue rather, of an international law journal, or a book, which would obviously be an edited volume with contributions from committee members. So as the work progresses, we would probably identify which of these publication fora will work best. In terms of timeframes, between January this year and June, it's really we really focus on constituting this committee. Nominations from branches are welcomed, and the marketing I mentioned earlier is also supposed to happen now. This I actually invented myself, and Helmut, Janne, Mirko, you are welcome to jump in here. I thought that between June and September, it would be important to ensure committee member engagement, meetings, the word I hate, and the distribution of work among committee members. So I think that would be the important next step the moment that the committees constituted. You can move on to the last slide. Thanks, Helmut. And then the grant timeframes or the grant planning entail the following: 2024 up until 2026. That's where we will do the actual work, the reading, the research into the areas that have been identified as the focus of this committee. So there will be a general overview of the impact of cities on urban sustainability, human security, and on law and the practices of international organizations in relation to global governance in these first 2 years. There will also be, at a more practical level, the expansion of the website and its maintenance, especially as far as the City Report initiative is concerned, to ensure that more city reports are being drafted and uploaded. And then the interim report will have to be concluded by 2026. Then the next phase, 2026 up until 2028, where the study and research will turn to the impact of urbanization on fundamental concepts of international law. And these include, but are not confined to, capacity, sources of doctrine, jurisdiction, responsibility, and so forth. And we hope then to also have the special issue or the book done by the end of 2028. And also in 2028, it's so close to 2030 if you think about the SDGs, the final report to be concluded, building on the work that's been done the 3 years, 4 years prior. It's likely that a set of guidelines might emanate from the work we've done. There will be recommendations. We would like to see alignment with the work of other institutions in this area, other organizations, possibly also other committees of the ILA. It would be prudent also to disseminate the findings, to ensure that the book and the articles, whatever it would be, gets read and cited and used also by policymakers. And we envisage that there will also be the conclusion of other outputs by the end of 2028. So that's from me in terms of what we hope to be doing. It's ambitious, but definitely doable. Thank you very much. I think I'm handing over to Janne.
Okay, that's totally fine. I think it's really a conversation we will be having, but we're eager to see and hear whether you have questions, inquiries, comments. The mic is open, so to say.
And I will stop the recording now, maybe at this point.